Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the LitRPG podcast, episode number 217. I just skipped 100 episodes. I'm Ramon Mejia. I'm here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and of course, author interviews. And this week I have 3 new reviews for you folks at home. First this week is going to be First Song, book number 2, Anthem of Infinity. After that, it will be the Incarnator, Project Stellar, book number 1, a LitRPG series. And then last but not least is going to be Neon Dark, a LitRPG adventure Zero.Hero book. So we got 3 new reviews for you folks at home. Before we get into any of that, of course, we're going to go into LitRPG news. And in LitRPG news, we got a couple stories here for you this week. First one being a great deal for people who like ebooks. Mountaindale Press has published the 4th book in the Axe Druid series this week. And to promote the novel, they were doing a great sale on the first 3 books. The first book, Into the Light, is free. Absolutely free through the 17th of this month of March. The second and the third book are discounted to the low price of 99 cents and $2.99 respectively in the US and UK through the 20th of the month. So plenty of great opportunities to catch up on the series and then grab book number 4 in the series. We of course have a link in the show notes for you to click on and get all the series titles. In other LitRPG news, we have a new audiobook release for The Wayward Bard, which is the 2nd book in that particular series. Assembly Theater, the folks who did the narration for that, have reminded us of the oh-so-funny D&D song that they created, and that was written by the author of that novel. I love that video and that song, so here it is in all its glory.
Berserkers are masters of mayhem. We leave no opponents alive. You're looking for someone to slay them? Then this is exactly our jive.
Nah. Go Bard. That's smart. Might lose a fist fight to an NPC. Yeah. Bard class. Such sass, and your punch will forever be free.
We wizards are kings of the arcane. Our spells lend control of it all. When faced with a threat from the mundane, I just need my old fireball.
Bah! Screw smarts. Choose bards. We might have the brains of a chimpanzee. Bard class. With a nice ass, will always beat necromancy.
Our cleric is her god's defender. Divine magic straight to your face. Should God be away on a bender, I'll educate you with my mace.
Go Bard. Party hard. The one single thing we do well is flee. Bard class. Forget mass. Least we don't have to get on our knees. I mean, that would be uncomfortable, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. When we all set out for adventure, I always wind up on the bench. But their laughter soon changes to censure when I take home the lone tavern wench. Everybody, rock hard. Go Bard when the party says that I'm always wrong. Bard class, first class. They forget who will make a bar song. Cheers!
And there you go, folks. That's a wonderful song. And of course, it's also a promotion for the Fallen Bard, which is out now. Okay. In other LitRPG news, we have actually a nice new LitRPG-ish podcast. It's in a very original way to promote a LitRPG novel, Dark Worlds Paris, which will be in the upcoming LitRPG section of the show here. Author Tony Walker / Scaling Wolf has decided to release his short story, Dark Worlds London, as an episodic podcast. Every week, a new chapter is read, and it's a good listen and a short story that I really enjoyed. To date, it is still the best combination of LitRPG and Cthulhu horror that I have yet to read. So it's actually a really good short story. I'm actually really sure if you just listen to it or read it, you're going to enjoy it if you like Cthulhu-ish horror stuff. It's really quite fun. But I thought it was kind of a neat way to do a promo for your new book. So good for you. In other LitRPG news, we have charity-ish book. 22 authors have put together a game-led anthology of short stories and are donating the proceeds of the sale to support the wildlife devastation by the Australian wildfires. It's called Rise and Rescue. Depending on which description you read or who's like doing the promo for it, some people say, oh, it's completely game-led, or it's LitRPG and fantasy and sci-fi and a bunch of other short stories. But the big point is that the proceeds go to a charity to support the Australian wildfires. So definitely go check it out. Give it a read. It's also, I think, believe on Kindle Unlimited. So you're not really going to cost anything if you just like some of the short stories. That's kind of the way it is with most anthologies. So there you go. That's stuff for LitRPG news. On to stuff that is out now. There's just a list of stuff for stories that have come out recently. Haven't had a chance to read them, but they are out for you to enjoy. And that includes Viridian Gate Insurrection, the third book in the Alchemic Weaponer series. Also, the fourth book in the Axe Druid book series, written by Christopher Johns. Also, Dungeon Ward's Inner War. That is out for you to enjoy, as is Grim Bearings, the Ashen Plain, book number 1. So all these nice ebooks for you to enjoy, but even more audiobooks in the LitRPG realm. And that includes the 7th book in the System Apocalypse series called Stars Awoken, the 2nd book in the World of Chain series called The Fallen Bard, and the 2nd book in the Underdog series, which is actually quite nice. And a book we just reviewed last week for the ebook version. The audiobook version is out now, called Dragon's Mist, a 4X strategy LitRPG series. Also out is Primeverse Force Login, the first book in that series. And The Crafter, Trench Warfare Crafter series, book number 2, is out as an audiobook as well. And is the World's Strongest Words to Become Manaless, a fantasy LitRPG series, volume 1. This was a little more of a middle of the road book. It was interesting game mechanics. Story itself was like, oh, it's okay. But still, if you happen to have a free credit, why not, I guess. But plenty of LitRPG audiobooks for you guys to go enjoy and to read, and plenty. Okay, on to upcoming LitRPG. Reading a bunch of names of stuff that's coming out in the near future, so you can plan your reading schedule, or your purchase schedule, or your release schedule as it applies. On March the 14th, The Traveling Dungeon, the Dungeon Travels, book number 2. March the 17th, the 2nd book in the Beetle series. March the 19th, Dark World Paris, a Cthulhu LitRPG, which we just mentioned in the news section. On March the 20th, the 3rd book in the Underdog series. March the 23rd, Rogue Merchant, book number 1. On March 23rd, Dark LitRPG, book number 2, Dark Reincarnate. Remember that this is a translated Russian series. I enjoyed book number 1. On March the 25th, Stranger is Coming. On March 27th, A Touch of Power, book number 3 in that series, called Sense. On March the 3rd, the 5th book in the Hero Line series. April the 1st, just in time for April Fool's Day, Sentence to Troll, book number 3. On April the 2nd, it'll be The World of the Change, book number 3. On April the 2nd as well, it'll be Eastbound in Town, The Good Guys, book number 8 in that series. April the 3rd, this one's actually new to the list, Mage Blood, Mephisto's Magic Online, book number 1, written by Christopher Johns and published out by Mountaindale Press. On April the 10th, it'll be Expedition New, Sun and Shadow Online, book number 2. April the 14th, this is new to the list as well, Life in Exile, Watcher's Test. April the 15th, the 5th book in the Dragon Heart series. April 29th, the 4th book in the Discardium series. April 29th as well, 3rd book in the Player Reached the Top series. April the 30th, Legends Online, book number 5. May the 1st, it's going to be Archemy Online Chronicles, book number 4. On May the 5th, the Blood Crown, book number 2. May 31st, the Glory Formation Empire, book number 4. June the 9th, one I'm looking forward to actually quite a bit. The 6th book in the Reality Bender series. And July the 1st, 2020, A Star Sunder, book 9 in the System Apocalypse series. And July the 8th, it'll be Project Stellar, book number 2. We're actually reviewing, of course, the book number 1 on the podcast this week on the episode. So there we go. That's all the stuff that I know it's coming out in the near future, out now, and audiobooks and ebooks, on to new releases and reviews. Okay, first up this week in the show is going to be First Song, Book 2, and that's the second book in the Anthem of Infinity series, written by Blaze Corbin and Outspanned Foster. It is 334 pages, $5.98. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. The entire world has changed, and Noah has changed with it. A year after the shift, the plans he delayed, caches he's hidden, and the infrastructure we'd put into place have saved millions. But the world's death toll has still been astronomical. Now he continues to struggle to protect the people he cares about and to atone for his past weakness. Joining with his elite group, the Merryweathers, Noah has been patrolling the eastern United States. He has been helping new communities rebuild from the ashes of civilization. But his true goal has always been the search for humanity's enemies, the Elves. And when Noah finally hears new rumors about his old foes, what he will encounter will be beyond anything he could have imagined. Ghosts from the past will return and new discoveries will create more questions. Noah will learn that the post-shift world can be even more dangerous than anything he had planned for. There might be something out there even worse than the Elves. So there we go. This is a good story. I enjoyed it. It does feel fundamentally different than the first book in the series, a lot of the first book of the series, without getting too spoilery. It was originally set in like a far future, where like this alien invasion already hit, and a good like half of the novel was the main character's experience in that timeline. And then there was a shift in that story where the main character gets a second chance, essentially preparing for that kind of alien invasion, apocalypse kind of setting. And so a lot of the rest of the story is that preparation and the final resolution of those aliens kind of coming. In book number 2 in that series, that all's happened. That's all in the past now. And so the entire way that the story is told is actually quite a bit different. This kind of has a slow beginning in that the beginning of the novel really does a pretty decent job of recapping the big events that happened in book 1, but also all the stuff that has happened between the end of book 1, which is really just the beginning of that apocalypse kind of situation. And I want to say it's like been a couple years up until like this point here, but there's been a decent progression of time between then and the beginning of this book. And so the beginning of this book kind of highlights and recaps all those things that have occurred. And so it's kind of a slow start. So, but once the novel gets to the first like big mission in the story, the pacing is really fast, and there's a lot of like really good action and adventure and fighting and good stuff like that. But it takes a little bit together. So if you're finding yourself struggling a little bit with the beginning of this novel, I'd say just push through, because you're going to be rewarded with some really good stuff. This book also definitely feels a little more straight apocalypse, post-apocalypse feeling. And so I think that's actually going to be to a benefit for general readers. Like they're going to have something they can kind of appreciate if you enjoy apocalyptic kind of stories where like there's a limit on technology and people are surviving for resources, but also against these obstacles or enemies that are coming after them. I think people who like the kind of stories are also going to really enjoy this. Game mechanic wise, the novel in this one are the same as the first one. They're I want to say they show up a little bit more just because there's a huge setup where they didn't exist in book 1, but they exist the entire way through this novel. They do show up a little bit more. It is still a light LitRPG in that the game mechanics are the powers are important. The actual progression and the thought process of what he's going to do, they show up in smaller chunk, but they do exist in the story, and it is definitely LitRPG. But I'd say it's definitely on the lighter side of LitRPG. Some of the things I thought were improved in this story that I thought were like real highlights was definitely the way that the storytellers built up the main group in that first kind of recap section. Like it's described in the novel description, the main character is kind of exploring and patrolling the eastern of the United States with his group, the Merryweathers. And so as the reader, you get to know each one of those little characters. And at first I thought, where's he going with all these backstories? And it turned out that, not everybody in this group is going to survive this novel. And their deaths actually had some oomph to it because you got to know, the authors took the time to let you get to know them before killing them. So they didn't feel like they were just kind of throwaway characters from the get-go, which I definitely appreciated because those deaths had meaning, and the main character's reactions to those losses felt a little more genuine. Also, there were some interesting twists in the novel that I thought were really good and that weren't, I didn't see them coming from the first novel directly. So that's good. I like surprises. I like different changes in the story. And I think you could actually probably start right off in this novel and probably be okay, but you wouldn't quite understand quite all the background stories. But I still enjoyed it. So good time. I think this one, again, was a little more familiar and a little less innovative for me. So it doesn't quite get the great review score, but it's still really good. It's just a little bit shy of that, I'll say. So for me, it's a score of 7.8 out of 10. That's a really good score. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. For first song, book 2, Anthem of Infinity, book number 2. So there you go. That's again a score of 7.8 out of 10. And next we have The Incarnator, Project Stellar, book number 1, written by Roman Prokofiev. Okay, this one is 563 pages, $3.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. It is a Russian translation. There you go. Here's the author's description. When the shattered fragments of the Black Moon collapse onto planet Earth, splitting continents apart and flooding them with raging oceans, darkness descended onto our world. The eruptions of hostile energy from behind the edge distorted the laws of the physical world, creating new life forms from which now threaten to take over the planet. The last remaining vestiges of humankind, too desperate for their own survival, have nothing to offer against their advance. So it's time to activate Incarnation. The last instruction issued by Project Stellar. In a situation where there's not enough living beings to protect planet Earth, the dead fighters will have to rejoin the defenders' ranks. Okay, this story from the cover, you could probably not tell at all what this is. Like that scene on the cover is like an end scene in this novel. And it doesn't really do a good job of even describing what this story is, which is unfortunate because it's actually quite a good story. This is a slice of life, post-apocalyptic sci-fi lit RPG. So slice of life, you're just following a guy as he's doing some stuff. Adventures. There's not like a super heavy plot to save the universe or anything yet. I think that's something that's going to be developed later in the series. But for now, you're really just kind of following him as he enters this world, as he figures out the rules, what's happening, as he gains powers and progressions and kind of explores the world. It's very slice of life. Post-apocalyptic, definitely the setting. And this definitely feels a little more traditional post-apocalyptic, a little more Mad Maxy than zombie apocalypse. And sci-fi, this is definitely heavier on the sci-fi than other stories that I've read. A lot of sci-fi elements, guns, cyborgs, mutant variations, a bunch of cool things like that. And it is definitely an RPG. The main character wakes up without a memory of his past and is a ghost-like entity that can possess a recently deceased body as his own. That alone is a very unique system and mechanic. I really liked it. The setting is definitely more post-apocalyptic than most post-apocalyptic sci-fi. The main character starts with futuristic guns and armors. He fights mutated monsters, aliens, and augmented humans in a destroyed cityscape. He uses tech and modern items. He also has the ability to upgrade his host body using Azure, which is, I guess, the story's variation of experience points or like mana or whatever, and the genetics of the monsters he kills while he tries to survive in this new world and unravel the mystery of what happened to humanity and how he's supposed to restore it. On the game mechanics side of things, there are a lot of notifications that are shared with the reader, upgrades possible, item descriptions, messages from his snarky AI companion, quest, abilities, a lot of stuff. He gathers Azure instead of XP from monsters and radiation sources to create tech upgrades and bio enhancements. More powerful upgrades require more Azure. When the main character dies, he can spend Azure to bring his host body back to life, or he has to find a new host body to start over, gathering resources and upgrades. So it's like respawning versus starting a new character, which I thought was a really interesting mechanic. It's not utilized to the maximum potential, I think, in this particular first book. It might be something that's is used to create longevity if this is a longer running series. Again, this is a translated series, so it might already be written completely in Russian, and it's just being translated now, but there are some interesting potentialities within the system. Overall, I had a good time with it. It really was. This is a very action-focused story. Again, it follows the main character as he tries to figure out the world, gets in tons of fights, how he decides to collect more Azure for upgrades and peels back the world lore, and how the world got into such a terrible state, and how he's tied to it. There were hints with bigger things in the series potentially, but these are series things like factions, intrigue, other large plots. But for the most part, again, this is in the first book. It's a good slice of life action adventure story, so which I enjoyed. For me, it gets a score of 7.6 out of 10. That's the Incarnator Project Stellar book number 1 with a score of 7.6 out of 10. And next up we have Neon Dark, a LitRPG adventure, Zero.Hero, book number 1, written by J.D. Astra. This is the same author who's written a side series for the Reading It Line series. If you like that, you might like this. It is 298 pages. It is $4.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. And here's the author's description. The greatest heroes have already fallen. Now it's up to Claire and her ragtag crew of zeros to save the city. Low-rank contractors Claire, Elsie, Nora, and Piper dream of making up to the top 20 with the Stewards of Light. But their weird RPG powers have them trapped near the bottom instead. Balancing college, part-time jobs, and family matters leaves the girls without much time to fight crime and grind out the experience they need to climb the ranks. When a new threat emerges, the gamer girls are left standing in a city turned upside down with no hero to save them. The underclassmen are outclassed, but they're also the only ones who can stop the spread of chaos. Claire and her friends will have to unravel the mess with clever teamwork and determination, and find the top-ranked heroes in themselves to save the city before it falls into darkness. So there we go. I kind of had a hard time getting with these characters. The main character, it's a female protagonist to the main character, and all the people in her team are also women. And so that's a very interesting and less used dynamic. For me, it was harder to relate because it is so faithful to a female mentality. And there are some, I want to say, touchy-feely relationship aspects and scenes that I was like, oh, this is probably what really happens with women. I'm not one of them though, so it's hard for me to relate. But that's me as a dude. So I think it will definitely appeal more to a different reader in that respect. Another thing that kind of put me off a little bit, for like a tiny bit really, there are a few forced plot moments, in particular like when the main character gets a magical doohickey that she needs to overcome a very specific obstacle later. I was like, oh, I thought that was going to happen when you got that thing early in the story. It's like, this doesn't seem like it applies to anything. It's going to come back later. And it did. And that's one of those things that's kind of pet peeve for me, where it's like, oh, the only reason this thing exists is to solve this story problem later. I'm like, oh, okay. So instead of like the main character relying upon their own powers or abilities, it's an outside influence. I'm like, oh, that's slightly annoying to me personally. But beyond those two like minor points, this is quite a good story. It's enjoyable. It combines superhero stuff with a modern setting, mostly slice of life stuff, a little bit of relationship issues, but also just like some pretty decent action adventure stuff. And it was enjoyable. It really was. In particular, I liked how the RPG powers were so much a part of the characters' lives. It wasn't just something they did for action adventure stuff. It's something that impacted them on a daily basis and that they used on a daily basis in their lives, with their families, with their communities, with their relationships. And that's kind of what I like to see with LitRPG, and then that the RPG stuff really has an impact on the entirety of a character's life. And so in that respect, super good. In other respects, it's just harder for me to connect with some of the story points, especially like their relationship. Like I'm not really, that's not my thing. And that's perfectly okay. We all have things that we really enjoy and things that we don't, and that varies from person to person. For me, that kind of took up a little bit, but overall it's still really quite good. It gets a good story combining a good superhero stuff with LitRPG, with female protagonists. So if those things are really important, you really like them, this might be really up your alley. For me, it gets a score of 7.5 out of 10. That's a good score. I enjoyed it. A little bit less than just for those few little points, but still quite a good story that I think other people will enjoy a lot more. Again, that's Neon Dark, a LitRPG adventure, Zero.Hero book number 1 with the score 7.4 out of 10. Okay, folks, that's it. We are done. We are finished. Finito. Thank you very much for hanging out with me today. Remember, you can follow the podcast on Facebook, on Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, the webpage at litrpgpodcast.com. You can find out all the list of all our back catalog of reviews, and we have well over 1,000 reviews at this point. in our database with all kinds of little tags, so you can find the things you like, and just find a good group of LitRPG reviews and stories for you to enjoy. You can also follow us on Facebook and just get this with your normal daily feed of stuff. So there you go. If you enjoy the podcast in any way, shape, or form and want to support us and keep us free and ad-free, you can find out all the ways to support the podcast at litrpgpodcast.com/support. But again, remember until we can hang on again, thank you very much for spending your time to see me and to listen to me talk about this genre that I love, and then hopefully you love and you enjoy, and I can help you find some good books, and we can just talk and hang out and chat. But until we can hang out again, folks, remember to go read some LitRPG.